Order. Simon Fell to move the motion.
I beg to move that this House has considered alternatives to council tax and stamp duty. Thank you, Ms Harris. It's an honour to serve under your chairmanship. We've spent a lot of time together today. Today I will address the problems with our property taxes, discuss previously suggested remedies and present a solution that cuts taxes for 77% of households, generates a surplus and garners popular support. I don't intend to speak for that long. There are a lot of colleagues in the room today and I want to hear their views, and I'd love to hear from the front benches as well. But I realise that this is an area fraught with danger. Indeed, my first political memory is that of the poll tax riots. We all know the consequences of trying to shake up the domestic rates system. But our current property taxes unfairly favour the wealthy. They burden lower value homes, they discourage efficient housing use, they undertax larger properties, and they penalise home buyers and sellers. These issues affect us all, and they affect all of our constituencies. Property taxes fund our important local services and infrastructure. They impact owners and renters alike. And when these taxes are ineffective, society suffers. Council tax and stamp duty are the main culprits. Council tax was introduced 3 decades ago, in 1993, as a replacement to the unpopular community charge, the poll tax. But over time, council tax has come to mirror many of those same characteristics that its disliked predecessor had. Surveys reveal public dissatisfaction in it. Only 29% of people consider council tax calculations fair. 33% of people support maintaining the status quo. It places the greatest burden on the young, on low earners, on residents in less prosperous regions, while greatly benefiting wealthy homeowners and property investors. As property prices have soared, average incomes have stagnated. Research by Onward, the think tank, shows that households spend between 0.8% and 4.5% of their income on council tax, with the highest payments in the North East and South West and the lowest in London. This is not the mark of a fair tax. It's unfair for 2 reasons. First, it relies on outdated property valuations from almost 30 years ago, disregarding substantial house price growth, especially at the top end of the market. This means that those who've benefited the most from house price rises have also been the biggest beneficiaries of the council tax system. And the second point is that the band structure itself creates a disproportionate burden, as all properties within a band pay exactly the same amount. Consequently, lower-end properties in each band bear a higher proportionate tax load than the high-end ones. These flaws sever the link between council tax and property values. For example, a person in a £100,000 property pays roughly 5 times more tax relative to property value than someone in a £1 million property. And to give you an illustration, here where we are right now in Westminster, a £30 million mansion pays £1,828 in council tax, whilst a family in a modest bandy home in my constituency in Barrow-in-Furness pays £2,068. How in the world can that be seen as fair? Stamp duty, council taxes accomplish, compounds that problem. While stamp duty is progressive with higher rates for larger transactions, it still exacerbates the housing crisis by hindering efficient property use. By taxing transactions, it discourages homeowners from moving, whether it be an older couple downsizing or a growing family upsizing. The economic impact extends to job opportunities rejected due to moving costs. The Chancellor's stamp duty holiday gave the UK property market a much-needed boost during the pandemic, but it also highlighted the merits of abolishing it altogether. Stamp duty hampers housing stock utilisation and residential mobility. Abolishing stamp duty on owner-occupied properties would unleash transactions and alleviate the housing crisis. Stamp duty should, however, remain in place for second home and non-residential buyers. In communities like mine, in Barrow-in-Furness, in Cumbria more widely, with villages being hollowed out by second homeowners and holiday lets, this just makes sense. Our country's property taxes, unpopular and unfair, demand reform. Proposed remedies so far have included new council tax bans, local income tax, higher stamp duty thresholds, capital gains tax on primary homes. But these are just band-aids. Fundamental reform is required to address the inequity and inefficiency of our property taxes.
Would Mike
Of course I would.
and grateful to him for giving way to me and congratulate him on bringing forward this debate and for the eloquence of his speech. This is an important subject. Would you agree with me also that one of the issues with council tax is it is very much at the vagaries and the whims of whichever political party is in charge of the town hall? So political parties, the Liberal Democrats in Stockport can say that they want to freeze council tax, but when in power can put it up by over 4.3%. And that's just an extra burden on taxpayers, and they don't necessarily get any value for that money.
Simon Fell. Thank you. My honourable colleague makes an excellent point, and I'm sure her electorate in Cheadle have been listening hard to what she said. Certainly, when we talk about 33% of people respecting council tax as it is, in my constituency where the administration put up council tax by 3.9%, I'm sure that number is even lower because they are very unhappy with the current situation. But, Ms Harris, many of my colleagues and I certainly support a move to a proportional property tax system. This is a methodology put forward by Fairer Share. It offers a concrete solution to replace the current very convoluted band system with a simple flat tax of 0.4%, 0.48% of property value and a 0.96% surcharge for a second, empty or non-residential home. The benefits of moving to a system like this would be significant. 18 million households would experience a tax reduction with an average annual tax saving of £556 a household. Council taxpayers outside central London would save £6.5 billion annually, providing a substantial boost to local communities and economies. Over 750,000 house buyers each year would be exempt from paying stamp duty and navigating exemption paperwork, simplifying and reducing the cost of house buying. An increased housing market activity would contribute to £3.27 billion a year of a boost in GDP. 1.4 million second homes, empty homes, undeveloped properties would finally contribute their fair share of tax, with the revenue used to lower bills for all taxpayers. This would incentivise owners to rent, sell or develop these properties and increase housing supply. The calculation is that over the span of 5 years, 600,000 homes would be released, including 250,000 one- and two-bedroom homes that we know young people desperately need right now. This reform would generate an annual surplus of £5.4 billion through surcharges on second homes, empty homes and foreign-owned homes. And I'm sure the Treasury could think of inventive ways to spend that sort of money. And finally, shifting the tax burden to owners, aligning with what is a broad international practice, would also ease administration for councils. But of course, it's rare and perhaps impossible to propose a wide-ranging reform where there aren't winners and losers. We are, after all, proposing to rebalance the property tax system based on the principles of fairness. However, I'd suggest there are several mitigations which could be implemented to soften the blow of any change for those who might have to pay more as a result of this charge. First, during the transition to the proportional property tax system, any rise in local property tax could be capped at £100 a month for primary residences. This transitional protection would cease upon sale, but buyers could benefit from the removal of punitive stamp duty. And second, a deferral mechanism could be put in place. So when owners are genuinely unable to pay, they're allowed to defer their tax payments with a modest interest charge. This deferral amount could be paid later on the sale of their property or home, avoiding any debt-related issues associated with council tax collection. These measures aim to alleviate the impact on individuals whilst ensuring a fair and manageable transition to the new system. There would also, of course, be impacts on local government finance. For councils that would generate less revenue for a proportional property tax compared to the current council tax, the shortfall would need to be supplemented through central government grants or funds redistributed from councils generating higher PPT revenue. This arrangement isn't new, and it's a long-standing feature of local government finance, and it could be seamlessly incorporated into the proportional property tax system with the following principles. First, the government could fully recognise how the proportional property tax affects council raising revenue capacity when formulating the funding arrangements for local government. Second, councils could be granted new powers to independently generate additional revenue, as some councils may experience a decrease in revenue-raising capacity. There's opportunities to introduce new revenue-raising powers. This might look like planning reforms, charging more for increased house construction, and again, this would be very beneficial for counties like Cumbria, Devon, Cornwall, facing into the accommodation and short-term let issues I mentioned earlier. And third, whilst it's understandable that some councils might be sceptical about the transition to proportional property taxes if they face a severe revenue-raising capacity issue as a result, it's important to note that those areas are going to be seeing the most benefit to their residents and a decrease in property tax bills. Fourth and finally, the policy may also create incentives for companies and individuals to relocate to areas with lower proportional property tax rates, benefiting those communities and eventually increasing those revenues for local authorities. That measure rebalances the local economy and helps level up left behind areas in one fell swoop. If taken, these measures would address the impact on local government finance by ensuring a balanced transition, exploring new revenue sources, and considering the overall benefits and adjustments that could be made to accommodate different council circumstances. This reform is crucial for my constituents in Barrow and Furness. It would benefit 96% of the households there, with an average annual saving of £600. It is no surprise that 58% of voters in my constituency support this policy, with only 9% opposing it, according to JL Partners polling. Nationally, voters overwhelmingly back this policy with a ratio of 3-1, and in the north, it's 9-1. A majority of voters in every constituency support this reform. I fundamentally believe that we should lead with policy and not follow polls, but these are numbers that are worth paying attention to. Council tax and stamp duty are fundamentally flawed, and many of us recognise this. Politicians from most of the parties in this room, along with think tanks from Bright Blue, IFS, the IPPR, campaign groups like Priced Out, Generation Rent, Intergenerational Foundation, have endorsed the transition to a proportional property tax. Prominent economists from respected publications, including the Financial Times, the Daily Telegraph, The Economist, and The Guardian, have given their endorsement to this reform. This policy would significantly increase the disposable income of individuals across the country, directly benefiting households and improving the quality of life in local communities. It would free up properties, encouraging efficient use, and crucially, it is based on the principle of fairness. It represents a genuine and impactful stride towards levelling up and advancement for all, and I very much look forward to listening to what my honourable friends and colleagues from the House have to say on this matter. Thank you, Ms Harris.
Can I remind members that they should